Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Mortuary. I am the Mortician, and today we'll be talking about movies to watch for October. There are actually 27 here, specifically because I wanted to pick one out for for each day of the rest of the month from today and going onward. You don't have to watch them that way, but I just felt it was kind of fitting because a lot of people do that sort of thing where they watch at least one movie every night. Some people do a lot of movies in one night and they keep it going, but I thought it would be fun, so I picked out 27 movies. And the first one is actually kind of a schlock film, and that's Slumber Party Massacre. I don't even know how to describe it because it's just all in the title. There's a slumber party, there's a massacre, and the guy's method for killing them is kind of interesting. He uses a drill for most of it, which is really cool and really unique compared to a lot of other people who use kitchen knives, the standard machete, whatever. He actually has a unique way of handling the slumber party. Next, we have Phantasm. Absolutely incredible movie. It is something that I believe everyone should watch at least once because it's one of those films that is, I don't know if I would call it slept on, but I feel like it's one of those movies that you kind of have to be in the know to watch because it's one of those like cult classic type of things. And it's great from the soundtrack to the cinematography to the villain itself. It's just really, really cool. And it leaves a lot up to imagination about the tall man specifically. And it's really, really awesome. Next, we have Brain Dead. Brain Dead, I just got done watching. I watched that movie ever since I found out about it. I watch that movie every year, so this is the fourth time I think I've watched it. Absolutely incredible. Forgot how gory it is. If you don't know what Brain Dead is, this is Peter Jackson. This is the guy who did Lord of the Rings and King Kong. That's this guy. And he made probably one of the most gory horror comedy films of all time. I'm surprised it even was able to be released. Hell, you can find two different versions of it on YouTube. So if you want to watch it, you can watch it that way. I don't know if it's illegal to say that, but it is available. And I'm not saying you should, but you should watch it any way you can. The next one we have is Dagon. Of course, I wrecked this the last time. This is one of those movies that I feel like a lot of people still don't really know about. And it's a shame because it's such a good take on Shadow over Innsmouth. And I watch it almost every time it rains. It rains kind of a lot over here during the summer. So I don't really watch it every time it rains. But it's a perfect rainy day movie. It's very spooky and creepy and eerie. And it's perfect for Halloween, especially on nights where it is raining. We just had rain here today, actually, as I'm filming this. We had a rainy day, and it would have been perfect if I wasn't out all day to watch. But absolutely great movie. Do not skip on that movie this year. Make sure that if any of these are on your list to watch, make sure that one is something you do watch. Next is Reanimator. It's actually by the same director who did Dagon. Reanimator is really, really cool. I would call it kind of a horror comedy. I don't know if I would say it's out and out a horror comedy, but it definitely has its moments of being really, really funny. And I just genuinely enjoy Jeffrey Combs in this role. Absolutely fantastic film. Next, we have Terrifier. Now, my friend Jiggly, he recommended me this movie like a year ago. Maybe it was like earlier this year. But about a year ago, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I finally watched it a couple of nights ago, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's a very fun watch, very gory. Definitely highly recommend. Next is Castle Freak. Castle Freak is actually really good. It's another Stuart Gordon film. It's not like the other two exactly. I would say this is, I don't know if I would say more subtle, but there's a lot less that you see of the scary thing than even Dagon, which they're barely around. But Castle Freak really isn't even, you don't really get to see the monster until, for real, really see the monster until the end of the film. And I think that's done really, really well and actually builds up a lot. It's kind of a shame that they show it on the front of the cover because the reveal is actually kind of startling. Next is Body Bags. There's a few anthology movies on here, and this is one of them. I've seen a lot of people call this mediocre, but honestly, sorry, I have stuffy nose, it's allergies, but Body Bags is actually very enjoyable. It's not high art. It's not made to be anything unique or mind blowing. It's just trying to have fun, and it really does. It is really fun. It's a great little anthology series. It's not too long, and it's just enjoyable. I really wish more people would look and appreciate Body Bags. Next is Maniac. This movie was super fucking controversial when it came out. In the last video that I made yesterday or 2 days ago now, the Acid Witch album on that list, that actually features one sample from a news report about this movie. And it just goes to show how widespread the controversy was, and there's a reason for it. It is gruesome, it is violent, and it is loads of fun. Next, we have Amityville Horror. Amityville Horror, the 1970 whatever one. I did watch the newer one, and it's like, okay, if you want to watch that, and it's the only thing available, that's fine. But the original is just supreme. It's so good. And there's not a lot of supernatural films on here, and this is one of them, specifically because this is one of the only movies that actually genuinely scared me when I watched it for the first time. There's a couple like that, actually, but this one, even as an adult, I found it unsettling, the fact that your own house can just fucking reject you, kind of like your own house can fucking reject you and just be a demonic, creature in and of itself, you know what I mean? That's scary shit. And it's really well done, well acted, great special effects, very good. I have, of course, had to put Hellraiser on here. Hellraiser is one of my favorite films. It has one of my favorite scenes in horror movies, the Jesus wept scene. Oh man, what a classic scene. I heard that apparently the director was not happy with the actor who made that, because apparently it was an ad lib, but it worked so perfectly in that moment. Absolutely great. Next, we have Zombie. You can't really have a horror list without something by Lucio Fulci, so of course it's going to be on here. Great movie. I watched the American version, which, if I remember correctly, like the American version that we got is like the second film or whatever, but it's still a great watch. Very enjoyable. Love it. Next is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is one of those movies that it was one of the first horror movies I ever bought on my own. I think it's the last horror movie that really made me, I would say, unsettled or scared. Really good. And the reason for that is, it's a classic for a reason. I don't think I have to go into too much, but for me, it was a lot to do with the fact that they left a lot to the imagination. So a lot of times with horror films, you don't really have to show the gory shit happening. A lot of that shit just builds in your mind if you do it correctly. And Tobe Hooper was a master at that. And, this is proof of that. Next, we have Edge of the Axe. This is actually a cult film. I just watched it. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it was a really fun movie. It's not really anything that's going to blow you away. It's not anything that's just super incredible. But I think it is a good enough movie to be watched. It's spooky. It has I would say, a pretty interesting plot that has you questioning a lot of things, and some really interesting kills. It was a really enjoyable watch, and I will totally watch that again another Halloween for sure. Then Sleepaway Camp. I put this on here, honestly, just because when I wrote down Edge of the Axe, it immediately made me think of Sleepaway Camp. Why that is, I don't really know, but I felt like it had to be on here, in my opinion. Next is Young Frankenstein. I love Gene Wilder. I loved him playing Willy Wonka, and I loved him in this as well. Absolutely incredible. Of course, it is a comedy film, and it's really good. Okay, so now we're going to do this thing where there's two, technically. And that's Creepshow for the first one. And that's another anthology series. It's really good. Kind of sort of wrote the book on this, in my opinion. It does it really well. totally fun. And then, of course, the next one being Creepshow 2, which a lot of people don't really seem to love as much, although I enjoyed it just as much as the first. I may be in the minority here, but it's totally worth putting on your list anyway. One of the stories is really good, and I think it's called The Lake. Really, really fun shit. The Thing. I left The Thing off my list last time. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm putting it on here specifically because it is just such a great movie. It is unironically probably my favorite movie, at least horror film. It is endlessly rewatchable. The special effects are second to none. There has never been and never will be a movie that had effects like The Thing. That was a one and done thing. That was a perfect fucking storm of just knowing what the fuck you have to do. And the guys on The Thing know that. Even the story itself is absolutely phenomenal. Incredible. Next is Juwan, another movie I left off, but I think it's actually worth putting on here because I actually rewatched it, I think, last year, and I really, really enjoyed it a lot more than I recall. It's just super, super fun. It's another kind of thing with Amityville horror work. It's not necessarily the house that rejects you in that sense, but it's I don't want to give it away, but it's interesting. The plot is very interesting. This one is actually interesting because I don't know if I call it scary, but it was fun. It was goofy in, I don't know, maybe a morbid sort of way, and that's Maniac Cop. I've never heard anyone talk about this movie, ever. I don't know why. Bruce Campbell's in it, and he does a great job. The movie itself is actually very fun, very enjoyable, and has a very satisfying ending. And there are 3 of these. Do not put the other 2 on your list. Just watch the first one. The second one is just a rehash of the first movie, essentially, with some new stuff going on. Not even worth it. I didn't even watch the third because the second was so horrible. And then next we have Tucker and Dale versus Evil. This is I don't want to say it's my favorite comedy horror film, or horror. I guess comedy horror fits this one better. But it's so high up there. It's almost Tom and Jerry-esque to an extent. Like, these kids are Tom, and like the Tucker and Dale are like unwitting Jerry's or something. Like, they are just, oh my god, these kids, right? These college kids, they're going down to the lake to party or whatever, and one of them hits their head on a rock or something while they're skinny dipping. They save her, they help her, and then the kids are convinced that they're gonna kill her, so they just go fucking ape shit. And it's kind of funny because it's like a case of mistaken identity where they think that these hillbillies are mass murderers, but it turns out that's not the case. It was the kids all along or something. It's not a spoiler. I think everyone fucking knows about this movie at this point. I'd be surprised. This is one of the most talked about independent, I think, and I'm pretty sure it's an independent film, but it's one of the most talked about independent films I've ever seen. Then we have Cabin in the Woods. Incredible. It's kind of a spoof on horror films in a lot of ways. Really, really good. A lot of people talk shit about the ending. I don't think the ending's that bad. I think it actually fits what they're going for here. It's definitely worth a watch during Halloween or October. Shaun of the Dead, of course, was going to be on here. I love that movie. I actually rewatched that last month. I should have waited a month, but I didn't. My friend really wanted to watch it. It might not have been last month. It might have been the month before, but that's irrelevant. Point is, it was a lot better than I recall it being. It had me laughing the entire way through, and there's some surprisingly good gore effects in that for being essentially just a comedy movie with a horror veneer. It was really, really cool to see, and how much love was put into this. Incredible. Next, we have Color Out of Space. Yes, the new Nick Cage one. I see people talk shit about it. You're wrong. I genuinely thought this movie was a lot of fun. I think that while it isn't 100% what I'm sure Lovecraft would have wanted out of a film, I think it's still enjoyable. A very enjoyable watch. I think Nick Cage is really good in it, surprisingly. I think he does a really, really good job. There's just nothing to hate about this movie. I mean, is it a little long in the tooth? Is it going on a little bit too long? Possibly. There is also the competition of a German film by I believe the same name. It's the same story, but done differently. And to be honest, they're just too different. They're too different to compare. And honestly, if you can, you should watch the American release, the newer American release, and the German one, because they're so stark different. I mean, you could easily slam dunk them in the same day if you really wanted to. I wouldn't watch them back to back. Maybe watch one earlier in the day and the one later in the day, but they're both worth watching if you really wanted to do that. And then, of course, The Crow on the 30th. That's the law. I don't care if you watch it on the 29th. You're dead to me. I don't even care. I don't fucking care if it's 11:59 on the 29th. If you put that on a second late, you're a horrible degenerate, and I want nothing to do with you. And then Evil Dead on the 31st. Now, the Evil Dead on the 31st, this was not a mistake either. I don't know if I've actually talked about this in my last video. I might have, gone over it briefly. The Evil Dead movie, the first one, is actually a tradition of mine. I watch it every single Halloween. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, if I come home dead tired after drinking or walking around, whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter. I come home, Evil Dead goes on. Don't give a shit. And it's because it's actually the first horror film that I bought and watched on my own. At about, I want to say 17, 18, something like that. So it was really the first movie that got everything started for horror films for me. So I watch it every Halloween because that's when I watched it. I watched it that Halloween that I bought it, which was only a couple of days beforehand. So Evil Dead every Halloween, and that's how I end it. Every single Halloween, Evil Dead. So thank you guys for watching. I hope I counted right. I didn't bother to double check because I don't give enough of a shit. But this is still a good list anyway. You would be remiss to not at least check a couple of these on this list. And I know there's going to be a couple on here that you haven't heard of. I'd be surprised if that's the case. So thank you guys for watching. Harold's on the skeleton, but you can't really see him. He's still alive. He didn't die. So now bye.